Best of r/malicious compliance episode 13. My mother, generally a capable woman, became a single mother of two, working full-time as a nurse and thus having little energy for raising little kids that did their best to be giant pains in the ass. That would be my siblings, by the way. So done was she, that she actually did consult an expert. Not an exorcist, mind you, just a parenting coach of some sort. This was the early 80s, by the way, meaning lots of weird ideas about parenting floating around. He basically told her, if her kids misbehaved, to walk away while loudly proclaiming these can't be my kids would never misbehave like that, and to ignore what they were doing. It took a couple of days to test this idea out, until my mother was awoken rudely by absolute mayhem in the children's room. She entered, only to be greeted by her daughter giggling, "We can't be your kids. Your kids are sleeping," while she and her brother jumped from bed to bed. My mother ended that experiment that night and later learned that the so-called expert had only ever raised a dog, and even that with questionable success. Edit, as the comments are too numerous. No, hitting a child is not raising them to be better people, as evident by the people that argue for hitting a defenseless person in the comments having turned out complete idiots. Also, study spanking hammered into Google gives you like a ton of studies against it. Yes, quite off topic. Thank you. Next. Happened like 15 years ago at high school. During breaks at school I'd be hanging around with my mates and there was this girl, nicknamed Flea because she was small and annoying. She was quite the annoyance but we largely ignored her. One day it got too much and I poured my water bottle over her. Unfortunately there was a teacher course and she saw what happened. Cue me being sent to the principal's office. Principal was naturally rather unimpressed by my behavior and told me to write an essay on what I'd done and why it was inappropriate, indicating that I'd received attention at the end of it. Now the MC, instead of writing the one-page essay requested, I wrote 3 pages, detailing the months of annoyance and abuse and how we were constantly trying to avoid her, even moving locations where we hung out. I detailed how she would jump on our backs trying to knock us off balance, causing us to fall several times, pull our hair, and the pièce de résistance of the essay, the dozens of times she tried to grab and kick our nuts. I got really good at catching approaching feet with my thighs. I handed in my essay and waited for them to tell me how much detention I'd get. The principal came out of his office, said I was free to go and told the teacher to bring the girl in. She ended up getting detention. I called to her parents and she didn't bother us again. Bonus story. Similar vein. Another girl I poured drink on. This time red fizzy on white school uniform. She was constantly stealing our hacky sack, so one day I saw her run for it as it fell, stepped on it so she couldn't get it. She was trying to wrench it out from under my foot, so I poured most of my can of red Mirinda slowly on her back. Poured half my drink out before she ran away. Nothing came of that one, although I figured out years later she actually liked me, so screwed that one up. Thank you. Next. So I work at a car parts store. A customer came in and after we exchanged greetings he told me to get him the cheapest battery we had. I asked him what his car was. He told me that it didn't matter what car he had. He said I needed to get him the cheapest battery we had, and I had to do it because he was the customer and the customer is always right. My brain immediately went to compliance mode. So I walked over to the battery rack, grabbed a small battery used to power hearing aids, and scanned it. The customer then complained that he couldn't start his car with that. I reminded him he asked for the cheapest battery we had, and this battery was a whole $3. He demanded to see my manager. Lucky enough for me, my manager was sitting a counter over, listening the whole time. So I turned to my manager, let him know I needed him, and he told the guy I complied with his request. He then said if the customer wanted a car battery we'd need to know his vehicle. The customer just stormed out in a huff. Me and my manager shared a laugh. We're pretty sure he wanted to cause damage to his car so he could attempt to get money out of the store. In the end he was just a big joke. Thank you. Next. Rereading this before posting it, this is boring as fuck. I'm on mobile, and while English is my first language, I'm only so-so at it. I'm the foreman of a directional boring crew. If you don't know what that is, the TL. Doctor is that you use a machine to push flexible metal rods in the ground, then hook up a pipe, say, for water or electric, and pull it back the hole you just made so there is minimal disturbance to the area. Anyone in the construction industry will tell you it's just packed with people in charge who've never done anything related to the field. They tend to read the rules and go to a class and think they're the expert. We have a whole department of them. The safety office. Their job is to prepare presentations once a month to keep people from getting complacent, fight claims against us from OSHA and PSE, prepare reports for the utility company, and everyone's favorite, random audits. There are a lot of pretty strict rules in place, and for good reasons. Wear your hard hat. Saved my life at least twice. No holes over 5 feet without stabilizing the walls. Treat every pipe or wire as if it might be live. This is important, etc. There are other rules that, if followed to the letter in all circumstances, are a waste of time, money, and sanity. The following is a story of one of those rules. When boring, you cannot physically see where the drill is cutting through, but it does have a transmitter that tells you all relevant information extremely accurately. Angles, pitches, depths, location. Before you begin, you must dig to verify the location of all utilities that are to be crossed or paralleled in order to prevent destroying it. Ever seen a 12 feet high fountain of sewage? I have. My company has a rule where you must both dig to find the utility, and dig deep enough to see the end of the machine passing through. This rule is in place specifically for bores that require that you have little clearance on the existing utilities. Most sane people find this rule being black and white as ridiculous, and just dig to find the utility, plus a buffer zone to know that you aren't aimed at it, and roll on. Since doing it by the book does not make anything safer and only costs loads of time and physical effort. I get a random audit one day from a new safety enforcer straight from college and everything seems peachy. I sign off and he goes on his way. The next day, I'm pulled into the office where my supervisor is waiting with a write-up from corporate. I had crossed a Verizon line that was 6 inches in the ground, where my depth was 4 feet, and hadn't instructed my crew to dig so they could see the crossing. I had broken a rule, so there was nothing I could do to fight it. The report was sent to corporate, so my supervisor couldn't fight it. 2 more and I'm gone. Cue malicious compliance. My next job was a simple gas service to a lavish house on a densely wooded hillside. Gas services need to be done in 1 day to make a reasonable profit. End of day 2, and my supervisor finally noticed that I didn't even have pipe in the ground yet. I get a stern talking to about my productivity and am sent to the area manager for the next phase of discipline. We have a good chat. The next day the new safety guy is not in a good mood. Through the grapevine I hear that his job was threatened if he kept up frivolous strikes on audits. I mean, I had to follow the rules. Wasn't my fault that I had to dig 5 2x4x4 test pits on a 30-year-old cut cable line snaking its way just under the pine needles in my path. Edit. Removed some words and changed a typo. TL. Dr. New safety guy with no experience causes unnecessary negative report to corporate, and gets put in his place. Thank you. Next. So this takes place Thanksgiving night after dinner. It is not my malicious compliance, but my son's. To keep it true to the rules, I'm writing it from his perspective. I, 9, was playing a slaps game with grandpa. He would lay his hand there and beckon for me to slap it, but would pull it away before I could. This went on for a long time and my hands are starting to get sore. Then something magical happens. He tells me that if I bring him a candy, he will let me slap him. I hurry over and fetch a candy to bring him, but when I get back he doesn't appear to be putting his hand down for me to slap. I try for his hand while it's up, but he yanks it away before I can get it, saying that he didn't tell me when I could slap him. Mum's in the kitchen still cleaning dishes, so I turn to her, completely baffled by this. Then she says the magic words, "He also didn't tell you where you could slap him." Without missing a beat, I slapped him as hard as I could on his face and turned back around to beam my pride at Mom for a job well done. Thank you. Next. This did happen about 15 years ago, but I can't help snickering about it from time to time. In high school, I was a pretty mild-mannered kid. I came from a very strict household, and a call from the school was absolutely unacceptable. I also wanted approval from authority figures, as I rarely got it at home, so I kept quiet, did good work and was generally well liked by my teachers. Like I said, it was a strict household and my outfits were closely inspected for modesty by my very conservative parents. If it passed at home, it wasn't going to get me in trouble. I tried hard to fit in with the other kids though, and found that wearing a layer underneath made regular outfits pass the home dress code. So I still got to wear the distressed jeans, but you could see black leggings instead of my knees. Not a huge deal, and it helped me feel better about my appearance, at least socially anyway. As trends were set, leggings became super popular. Finally, I was ahead and on point with my style. Some girls did begin to abuse the system though. School dress code required skirts to be no shorter than 3 inches, 1 index card, above the knee. Standard was suddenly lots of tiny denim mini skirts with leggings. So the school cracked down and said leggings were no longer allowed under skirts. Of course, since I had different home rules, I didn't even own a skirt that short. My skirts had to reach the knees, which was 3 inches longer than the school requirement. I didn't even mention the new school rule at home because I didn't think it was an issue. So I get super cute, wearing my knee-length denim skirt and leggings, as it was still trendy, and a bit chilly out, pass home inspection and head off to school. Nothing was said in my first 3 classes, but like I said, I was a good kid and always well covered. One of the super mean teachers, not even mine, just one standing outside her door, spotted my skirt and leggings in the hall, and grabbed me and marched me down to the office. I knew of the rule change, but I truly thought it wouldn't be a big deal since I wasn't wearing a mini skirt. She shoved me in and yelled something about a dress code violation and left to return to her class. I was called in, thinking the principal, who I didn't know well, would laugh with me about her unreasonableness. Boy was I wrong. He screamed up and down how I was dressed inappropriately, and he would be calling my parents to come get me to take me home to change. Oh no. Ooh no 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 no. As I stood and turned around showing him my clothes, I tried to argue that my skirt met code and the leggings covered more. I even tried to explain that my parents would take it out on me in an aggressive manner. He wasn't going to hear any of it. I had to think fast. Cue malicious compliance. While he was still looking for the number to call, I kicked off my shoes and began wriggling the leggings down and off, right there in his office in front of him. Since my skirt was long enough, I shoved my pants in my bag and stated that now he has no reason to call my parents. I was fully compliant with the dress code of the school. As he stared with his mouth agape, I could see him turning red while trying to figure out how to deal with me. He ended up just yelling, "Get out of my office. Get to class." Never have I felt so relieved. TLDR, leggings weren't allowed under skirts, but I thought mine would be fine since it met regulations. When I got in trouble, I removed my leggings from under my skirt right in front of them. Thank you. Next. My house insurance came up for renewal last week, and they sent me a letter saying it would auto-renew at some ridiculous inflated price. So as usual, I hit up the price comparison websites and did some research. After about half an hour of searching them all, I found a decent deal. It was the same price as my renewal, but with £50 cashback. Oh, it's with the same insurer I'm currently using. I set up the quote, saved it, and then phoned them to ask them to simply renew at the quote minus cashback rate, i.e., £150 instead of £200, to save all the fuss. The operator told me it wasn't possible. I said okay, then give me the policy with the cashback, £200, and send me the £50 cashback. I was told that I don't qualify for the cashback as it's for new customers only. They then asked me if I'd like to just renew at the rate on my renewal letter. Instead, I said no, I'd like to cancel the renewal of the policy completely. I was given a stern warning that I wouldn't be covered anymore if I did this and that my policy would last until midnight. I agreed. I was then informed it was all done and I would receive the details of the termination by email. Is there anything else I can help you with? The usual sign-off message of call center operators everywhere. Well, there is one thing. I'd like to take out a new policy with you. I have a quote here. Oh. A week later I received my cash back by check. A few days after my new customer welcome pack.